Welcome back in, my beautiful builders, to another episode of the Minecraft Survival Kingdom. In today's episode, we're going to be spending some time in the end building a bee factory. So without further ado, let's get into it. I believe today is going to be a beautiful day in Minecraft. You see what I did there? See what I did there? How come you guys don't like my jokes? Okay, no more bee jokes. I'm gonna bottle them up. you get it? Because it's honey bottles. It's honey okay, sorry. Anyway, in today's episode, we're going to be making a bee factory. However, I'm actually not going to be making it here in the farming area. And the reason for that is, well, bees are pretty laggy, and that's basically the only reason that I'm moving it out of the farming area, because I don't want this to be lagging right underneath my base all the time. Bee farms are pretty laggy, mostly because of the day-night cycle, and that's why I'm going to be putting this thing in the end. You see, whenever it turns daytime, bees pop out of their hive all at one time, and that causes a huge lag spike. And then whenever it becomes nighttime, they all go back into their hives all at once, and that causes lag. But by putting the bee farm in the end, we don't have to deal with that at all, because there's no day-night cycle in the end. So these guys are only going in and out of their hive whenever they have pollen on their butt. So that's why I've chosen the end, but we have some other prep work to do. You see, the end sounds like a perfect location until you remember there's a ton of Endermen on the spawn island that I could look at by accident whenever I'm just, hanging out at my bee farm. So I want to get rid of that. I want to completely spawn-proof the entire end island by lighting it up. And no, I've never done that before, and yes, it does sound like a lot of work. But I think it'll be well worth it, and that also means that if we ever need to put any other farm here in the end in the future, we already have the island spawn-proofed, and we can just put it here. It can kind of be our secondary farming area for super laggy farms. So I guess without further ado, sit back, relax. It's time for a time lapse. Okay, so can I be honest with you guys? The end is actually creepier with the whole spawn island lit up. Like, it is quiet. Deafeningly quiet. I don't know that I like this. We need to get the bees in here just so that it's not so quiet in here. Now, it's not perfectly lit up, especially around the edges. There's still some Endermen, like, down below and such, but honestly, I don't care about that. So long as I'm not looking at these guys, they're not up here on the surface, I'm good. Or I say I'm good. I'm actually terrified. It is very quiet in here, guys. Extremely. There needs to be some ambient sound in here or something. I'm about to lose my mind. Okay, let's get a bee farm in here. I don't know exactly where I want to put this. I think I want to put it away from the pillars in case I ever need to fight the dragon again in order to get more of those guys here, the end gateways. I think I want to have an area that I can fight the dragon in safely without messing with the bee farm. So I'm thinking way out here over near the edge could be a really, really good option. Maybe in this area. This seems like a decent enough place for a bee farm. Okay, so the bee farm that I'm going to be making is going to be a design by Ian X04. He's kind of a famous Minecraft farm builder, and I really like his design. However, one issue that I do have with it is it's not quite big enough. The design that he does in his tutorial is only for 8 beehives, and I don't know if you guys remember the last episode, but we got 20 beehives. So we're gonna have to expand this thing quite a bit. But I think that's okay because this design is quite expandable. However, one thing that I do need to check and make sure is that the entire thing falls within one chunk. So, yep, I'm gonna have to move this thing already. Yeah, I want this whole thing to be in one chunk. That way, none of the redstone crosses over a chunk border and unloads improperly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove a little bit of torches here, and we're going to align it inside of this chunk here, and that should be fine. We should be able to fit the entire farm inside of this chunk. I think so anyway. Okay, so to give a quick overview of how this farm actually works, first off, we have a dropper here on the bottom with a dispenser here on top with a hopper over here. And right in this empty space here is where our beehive is going to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our shears and our honey bottles inside of this dispenser, and whenever it clicks after we get our redstone in, it's going to try and either shear or honey bottle this hive. Now, if nothing is in this hive, if it is not shearable and not honey bodyable, honey bodyable, okay, sorry, I'm an idiot. Anyway, if nothing's in this hive, it's just going to spit out the honey bottle, or the shears, it's just going to keep the shears inside of this particular dispenser. It's not going to spit out the shears. So if it shears, nothing's going to happen. The honey bottle is just going to spit into this hopper, and then it's going to be fed into this dropper, and then this dropper is going to feed into this dispenser, and it's going to try again on this hive. And then if it fails, it goes down, boom, 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 boom. Now, if it succeeds, if it actually uses a shear, the honeycomb goes through the block and then into a hopper down here. And then that just gets transported all the way along until we get to a pickup system of some sort. Now, if it's a honey bottle, the honey bottle is ejected from the dispenser, and then the honey bottle goes into here and keeps going through the system over and over again until it gets to our sorter. So that's essentially how this thing works. It's very, very basic for the most part, but it's big, and that's the big kicker here, is that I'm making this thing supersized. So we're gonna need a 2-high wall for our design, kind of a ring around here just to keep the bees in place somewhat, and then we're probably also going to need a wall right here alongside these dispensers just to keep them into a one wide cell like this. I think that should work for us. All right, now just placing in some flowers, placing in some walls to make sure that they don't escape out of the top. And now I should be able to place in all of my bee nest so long as I have the entrance facing into this temporary block here. Now, here in just a minute, we're actually going to remove those temporary blocks, but for right now, I should be able to get each one of my beehives into place. I just have to be very careful. I don't want the entrance facing out this direction, because if it does, we're gonna spill bees all over the end. All right, all of our bee nests are now in place, and this thing, I gotta admit, it's looking pretty cool. Definitely giving off those factory vibes. But anyway, now it is time for us to actually get in the redstone. Lucky for me, the redstone for the farm itself is actually very simple. It's almost as easy as making a melon and pumpkin farm. All we're gonna do is place down some redstone on top of each one of these dispensers, and then we're going to follow behind that with a repeater going counterclockwise in the other direction from our dispensers. So our dispensers are going around in a circle this direction. We're going to take our redstone and go around in that direction. So we should have just repeaters on top of each one of our hives on full tick delay all the way around like this. Now, I think on this last one, I don't need a repeater here, because otherwise this is just going to power on fully all the time. I think I need to leave out this repeater here, and then I need to hook up a clock to this dispenser right here to get this thing to actually start clicking on all of these bee nests. Yes, clicking. That is a redstone technical term. You guys wouldn't understand, okay? And the clock that we're going to be using is actually just a very simple comparator fader clock that uses an inverted redstone torch to actually work. So what we have here is just a couple of comparators that are facing into each other like this. And what this does is it fades down the power very, very slowly. And what that does is eventually it's going to go to 0 power, which is going to let this release, which is going to power it, which is going to feed right back into the comparators, get them to full power. When they're at full power, it's going to invert this back. And then when this is inverted, this is going to fade down until they're done fading and the cycle repeats itself. Very, very simple. And the way that I have it stopped right now is this lever. But if we flick this lever off, now the farm is going to work. That's going to fade down. And then you could see this thing just flashes for a second and boom. You can see it going all the way around the entire farm. Click, click, clicking. Absolutely perfect. This is a super, super easy circuit. Now, I did just remember that I do have a bit of a problem. If we go ahead and turn on Mini HUD, and you remember from the last episode, in the top left corner, we can see how many bees are in this hive, and not all of these are full. As you can see, this beehive has 2, this one has 3, this one has 2, this one has 2, this one has 2, and this one has 0. So not all of these beehives actually have bees in them. So I think I need to go back into the overworld, grab up some more flowers and breed these guys up before I turn on the farm officially. So still a little bit more work to do here, but overall not too bad. This is the basics of the farm. After this, I have 2 more circuits that I really want to get in. I want to get a circuit to get out the honeycombs. I want to get a circuit to get out the honey bottles. And then I guess one last circuit, I would like to use a crafter in order to turn all the honey bottles straight into honey blocks and then recycle the honey bottles right back into the system here. So I don't have to load this system up with thousands and thousands of glass bottles. I can just have, you know, a few hundred and then recycle those glass bottles right back into the system. That's going to take a whole lot more redstone, and I'm worried that that's not going to fit inside of this one chunk like I wanted, but we're going to try and squeeze it at least. I may have made this farm a bit too big, but we'll worry about that when we get to it. For right now, we are on mission flowers. Alrighty, and here we go. This will do nicely. These will do nicely. And I don't think we have that many to breed up, so you know what? This ought to be fine. Okay, moment of truth. Here we go. In this hive, we have 3 bees. In this hive, we have 2 bees. So we need to give at least 2 of these bees flowers so that they breed. So if I have 29 pink tulips, we should have 27, and that will breed us 1 more bee that we can fill this hive with. So let's hope these guys don't spill out all over the end. Boom. Okay, and then boink. Boink. Those guys should breed up. I should get a little bit of XP. Booyah. And there's the little baby bee over there. Nice. Now, when it actually becomes grown up, or I guess whenever it gets pollinated, which I think they can only pollinate when they're grown up. But anyway, when it gets like that, it will go back into its hive and it should fill up this one right here. Now, I think for this beehive that actually has 0 bees in it, I'm actually going to take this one out of the system because there's no point in keeping it here. And honestly, I would rather just go get a different bee nest out of the overworld. And then all of these guys that already have 3 bees, boom, we can just go ahead and release those. This guy has 2, and we can go ahead and breed these dudes up. Well, where is the other one? he didn't come out, or he escaped? No, he's there. They're just very close together right now. Can you guys, like, separate so I can get the other one with the flower? Look, don't you want to breed? Okay, well, whatever. I'll get them in just a second. Alrighty, so bit of a progress update now. Every single one of my hives now has 3 bees in it, all bred up. So we are good all the way around, except for this one. So I'm going to head to the overworld real quick, and I'm going to go and get another hive that has at least 2 bees in it. I would like to get one that's already full, but, you know, beggars can't be choosers. As long as we can get 2 and then we can breed them up into that space, I'm fine with that as well. Okay, so I found another hive here in the overworld that will have 3 bees in it, as long as I can get this guy in there. There we go. And this should now have, yep, 3 bees. Okay, silk touch. Boom. Perfect. Back to the end. Oh my gosh. Actually, I just had the best idea. I don't need to collect sand for glass bottles. I can just get glass. Okay, so hear me out for a second. Rather than going and collecting up a bunch of sand and getting glass that way, in which I would have to smelt down the sand and maybe make a super smelter and all that, I can get glass from librarians for super cheap. If we go ahead and check it out here, 1 emerald for 4 glass, and I don't have to smelt it down and have a super smelter or use up all of my coal. That's great, and I have a fair amount of emeralds, and I can get even more fairly easily. Like, this is a pretty good emerald stash, and I have melons and pumpkins and sugar cane and everything else. We can literally do this for all of our glass, I think, and get honey bottles super easy. I have to say, I impress myself sometimes. Alrighty, so now that all of the beehives are in place and 3 bees are in each and every one of the beehives, I just need to get all of the redstone circuitry hooked back up, and then we're going to give this thing its maiden voyage. We're going to give this thing a shot because I actually need honey bottles as well as honeycombs in order to set up any of the filters that I'm going to use to pull items out of this thing. So I'm just going to start by filling up each one of these dispensers with 1 set of shears and 1 set of glass bottles. And then after that, I should be able to just come and check the droppers down here, I believe, and pull out some of the honeycombs and honey bottles as they're being created. And boy, are these shears expensive. Next episode is definitely going to have to be an iron farm, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to keep this thing stocked up with shears for too terribly long. And we're going to have to go back to just filling this thing up purely with glass bottles. But anyway, for right now, that will do. And I'll put my iron ingots in there. And now let's go around and just start putting a couple of stacks of glass bottles into each one of these things, just as a trial run. Here in the future, we're going to have probably half and half. I'm going to do half of shears, so like 4 slots of shears, and then 5 slots of honey bottles. I'm thinking is what I'm going to do. I may even do 3 shears and then the rest honey bottles or glass bottles, because it takes more glass bottles to make a honey block, and we need more of that than we need honeycomb, I believe, if we want to get even amounts anyway. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna fill this up with a little bit, and yeah, then we're just gonna start this thing and see what happens. Alrighty, here we go. Test run number 1. And if nothing else, that sounded good. It sounded really good. There goes a honey bottle. Perfect. And it should all be ending up in droppers and then just kind of circling around. See, that's a glass bottle. That's not what we want. I actually should be able to just sit on one of these droppers and pull out each thing as they come. So there's another glass bottle. That means that there wasn't any honey or anything in these, but it's just going to keep looping. Oh, there went a honey bottle. Okay. So I probably missed that one. There's another one. And essentially what we're going to want to do is we're just going to want to pull these out. Honeycombs. Nice. Another glass bottle. We don't want to pull that. Honeycomb. Nice. Honeycomb. It's working, guys. It's working. Now we just need to set up some filters and such to pull this stuff out of the bottom, and we're going to be golden. So we've officially reached the point in the video where I go mad with redstone for a few hours. But overall, I have to say, this thing came out great. We now have all of our honeycombs being filtered out, as well as all of our honey bottles being filtered out. And we have a crafter set up down there that is crafting it into honey blocks. And I left this thing going overnight, and we're looking pretty good with honey blocks. It's not amazing by any means, but our honeycomb production, this is pretty insane. We got all of these honeycombs just from one night AFK. So that's very nice. This thing is working really, really good. And it all fits inside of a single chunk. Just barely, but we got it all to fit. It is all in here and it's working wonderfully. So let me go ahead and show you guys all of the circuitry and exactly how it works. So we've already seen the clock that is running here that powers all of the repeaters and droppers and dispensers and all of that. That is this thing right here. Now I have shortened it up and put a block on top of this redstone, moved this thing over one block, and now it's just powering this redstone line directly instead of having one on the floor here and then the redstone torch. So I just shortened it up, put a block there. It's the same exact circuit for the most part though. And I did that just so that it actually fits inside of the chunk. It was slightly outside. So just shorten that up a little bit. That thing is nice and good to go. The next thing that I did was I added a item filter for our honeycombs. Now this is a super simple item filter. We just have a comparator going out, looping around into a repeater, and then into our redstone torch. This thing's pretty standard, and then I just have it filtering into a chest array here. Now you will notice that there are some furnaces on top of any hopper that doesn't have a hopper or dropper or something like that on top of it. This is to just stop some lag. If a hopper is constantly checking the air block above it for entities, then it causes a little bit of lag. So by putting a furnace on top of it, it's just checking this inventory space for, or I guess in this case, this inventory space for if there's anything in there. And that's a whole lot less laggy than checking the world itself. So you'll see a lot of furnaces around here. It's just to stop a little bit of the lag. So that is the honeycombs. That is how we bring them out. Now for the honey bottles. The honey bottles is a similar thing. We have the items coming out of the dropper. Now this is something that I probably should point out because it's an issue that I had. Don't pull out of the hopper. The hopper is actually pushing too quickly from the ejection of this dispenser. It's pushing too quickly and you actually won't be pulling all of the items out of the system. So it's better to pull out of the dropper because they actually kind of sit here for a second and then your item filter has time to actually filter out the items. But anyway, exact same filter design. We're filtering out all of the honey bottles. The honey bottles then come along this hopper line into this crafter. And on the other side of that crafter, I have a comparator that goes into a repeater and then just loops through this block back around into another repeater that will power the crafter. Now, this comparator right here is set up in subtract mode with another crafter here in another comparator. And this crafter is set up to where it has one empty slot. And then because we're in subtract mode, the second that this crafter here ends up with another bottle here, it does 8 minus 9, 1, boom, powers, and bada bing, bada boom, this thing goes off and crafts us a block of honey. Now, what this does is this outputs both the honey bottles, or I guess the glass bottles, and the honey block. So we have to output that into a hopper. So we output into this hopper here, and then that goes into this hopper here. From here, we have another item filter that is then bringing out all of the glass bottles, and then all of the honey blocks continue along into this chest array here. So honey blocks go this way, glass bottles go down. So once they go down, they end up into this dropper here, and I have a little bit of ice with a pressure plate on top. And once they end up in this dropper, we compare out to see if there's anything in this dropper. We power a bit of redstone into a repeater, push over into an observer clock. This tick, 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 ticks back and forth and empties out the dropper into this bubble stream. And that bubble stream is connected up into the hopper up top that distributes the bottles back into the system. That's how this thing works. It's very complicated whenever you're looking at it, but if you break down each individual circuit, it's not that bad. Just item filters where you need them, and then the comparator subtraction for the crafter itself. But other than that, this is super simple, and I like it. It's working out great. Now, one thing that you will notice is that you'll see some items that are backing up in my system here. And the reason for that is because remember how originally I said I was pulling out of the hoppers? Yeah, that's kind of the problem. If you're pulling out of the hoppers, then these will back up slowly. But now that I've moved all of my filters over to the droppers, we shouldn't have this issue anymore. So I just need to clean up my droppers that are here for right now. There we go. Just take all of the stuff out of them. And now we'll still have a little bit in our system every now and then as they're making their way around to our filters, but we shouldn't have just huge pileups like this anymore in our system. And this should be good to go. And while I would love to sit around here and watch this thing work for a little while longer, I actually have some unfinished business to attend to in our farming area. And it's time for these guys to finally get all waxed up. This is actually going to be super satisfying, seeing my entire room transform into what I always imagined it to be. Not this greenish blue blob. This is not industrial. It's pretty, but not industrial. There we go. Now this place is feeling like the maze of catwalks that I wanted it to. It looks great in here and feels very industrial now. No more of that blue colored oxidized copper. No, 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 no. Now we look like an actual factory. But anyway, I do think that's going to be where I wrap up for today. I do hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like on the video, as well as if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe. In the next episode, an iron farm definitely needs to happen. And I also probably need to work out something with gunpowder as well. So yeah, a lot of infrastructure building still. I need to get to building. I need to get to actually building, but I still have some other farms that I really want to set up. And well, because I'm going out of town here fairly soon, yeah, building takes more time than setting up farms, and I need videos to have to go out. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one.